Welcome to the School for Postgraduate Studies. This is Master of Project Planning and Management, MPP. The course unit under study is Project Risk and Cost Management. It's Module 1. And the objectives of this module are: 1, to get an overview of project cost management, understand the meaning of project costs, define project cost management, study the cost management process, and 4, to identify cost elements. Let's actually understand the overview of project cost management. We have done it through an illustration, as you can see in your slide. In the center of our illustration is cost management. And this is how we're going to actually understand the overview of cost management. We start with resource planning. Resource planning, we determine the resources, people who are the most important resources of any organization, equipment, like computers, projectors, and so on, material needed for project completion. When we assemble all those resources, we go ahead and do cost estimating. Cost estimating, we have developed an appropriation. Okay? We approximate overall cost of resources needed to complete the project. After doing that, we go ahead and do cost budgeting. Cost budgeting, we shall do allocation of the overall costs, estimate the project budget. We shall look at this in detail in the coming slides. Very important is cost control, controlling the changes of the budget. Here, we measure our cost control depending on the established standards. And if expenditure goes against the planned expenditure, we put corrective measures, that is cost control. In a way, you can see that we start with resource planning, we go to cost estimating, cost budgeting, and lastly, cost control. This will sum up project cost management. It's a summary. What is project cost? The project cost is a cost required to procure all the needed products, services, and resources to deliver the project successfully. Take, for example, in an example of a construction project, the cost estimation starts from land acquisition, which is a factor of production, construction costs, material costs, administration costs, labor costs, and other direct and indirect costs. Project cost management, as defined above in the illustration, includes the process listed here in your slide, as you can see: planning, estimating and budgeting, financing, funding, managing, and controlling costs so that the project can be completed within the approved budget. Cost management process. Briefly, as a reminder, we estimate costs, determine the budget, and control the costs so that whatever we do is in line with the planned cost. Anything that goes contrary, we should put corrective measures. The cost management process. Plan cost management is the process of defining how the project costs will be estimated, budgeted, managed, monitored, and controlled. Estimate costs. Estimate cost is the process of developing an approximation of the monetary resources needed to complete the project works. We actually use our experience, our expertise to gauge or to approximate the monetary resources needed to complete the project work or works. This is estimate the costs. Next, we determine the budget. Determining budget is the process of aggregating the estimated costs of individual activities or work packages to establish an authorized cost baseline. Here is a budget sample. We are looking at one item, which is office expenses for 6 months. Remember that we have particular budget headings. One of them could be office expenses, another one could be traveling expenses, another one could be equipment, another one could be human source or personnel budget. And in the end, we always get a subtotal, and all the subtotal are aggregated to get the grand total at the end of the budget. Here we're using one example for easy understanding. You make a tabulation, get 5 columns, and the rows will depend on particular details of your budget. So in the office expenses, we have telephone, internet, power, water, welfare, rent, cleaning, fuel maintenance, and so on and so forth. We have taken those few examples. And then at the end, you see the subtotal. In the first column, we have details, and they have been mentioned. Then units. Is it individual? Is it months? Is it pieces? Here we're using months for simple explanation. The quantity is 6 months. Price per unit is how much it costs for each month. And then column of quantity multiplied by the column of price per unit, we shall get a total. So when we add all this, shall get 11,400. It could be $1, it could be a shilling, depending on where you are located, the currency you're using in your project. So you can use all other budgets like this: personnel, equipment, this is office expenses, traveling. You can actually do them, and in the end, you add the subtotals to get the grand total. Cost control is the process of monitoring the status of the project to update the project costs and manage changes to cost baseline. Cost management elements. There are several, but shall actually summarize them. As mentioned in the above slides, useful elements of project cost management. One is cost estimation. One of the most important elements of a project cost management tool is cost estimation, which is the practice of forecasting the price of a complete project with a defined scope. Okay, we can actually view the recommended software in the forecasts. Okay, so the elements of cost are the 3 types of product costs. One is labor, materials, and overhead, and project costs. Look at this illustration. It is summarizing element of cost. The biggest percentage, which is normally about 50 to 60% of the project cost, is material cost. Then 2 is labor cost, 3 are expenses. Material cost could be divided into direct material and indirect material. Labor cost is also divided into direct labor and indirect labor. Direct labor is directly associated with the cost of a product that will be produced. Indirect can be appropriated. It could be something like power, something like supervision, stores, and so on. Those are indirect labor costs. Expenses are divided into direct expenses and indirect expenses. So all these can be summed up. Okay, what is indirect is an overhead. They are called overheads. Still, when you're looking at the costs, this is how it builds up, right from material to selling price. Look at your extreme left. We start by direct costs, direct labor, direct expenses. Okay, then we shall actually have factor expense, which is prime or direct cost. Then administrative expenses, which is factory or works costs. Then we have selling and distribution costs, which is office cost. Then we have profit or loss, depending on how efficient you have actually worked. Total cost of selling costs. We shall actually get the selling price when we actually add them up to the end. Another illustration that has been borrowed from the reference is here given in our illustration. We have still, as explained above, direct material costs, direct labor. Then we add the indirect expenses, which are variable. They change depending on the output. We get prime cost as a total. Then when we actually get this, we shall actually have to have factory or production overhead, and to result to factory costs. We add the selling overheads, distribution overheads, administration overheads. We shall get a total cost. Then it will result into profit or loss depending on our efficiency, the efficiency of the production. Then we are actually the resulting, the last figure will be the selling price. This has been a brief lecture, and we shall actually have further reading by reading Projects Estimating and Cost Management written by Avis Rad Jinga Levy. Same author has given us a good book, The Advanced Project Management Office. When you read this, we'll be able to answer the following question. This reference should help you to answer this question, the activity given for your coursework, which will actually be marked out of 10 marks, and it accounts for 10% of the semester marks. Question is, while giving examples, explain the project cost management process. We are to hand in 7 days. Thank you for being part of this lecture. I actually request you to like, subscribe, so that you can actually get all the upcoming lectures on YouTube. Thanks a lot. I hope we shall be able to have the next lecture in the next 12 hours. We shall be able to have the next lecture. Make sure that you answer the question appropriately and hand in through my email that is actually recorded here in. Thank you very much.